Okay, we are officially live here tonight, but we do have to let it breathe just for a few moments while we bring on our awesome Facebook community. And we are almost good. Welcome in, everybody, to the Huddle Up podcast, presented, as always, by Mile High Huddle, powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me, as always, is my partner in crime, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, a question that we took often during the offseason, which was ridiculous on its face because this now has become the most ridiculous year and season of all time. Hey, do you think since Pat Shurmur's the offensive coordinator, the Broncos ought to take a look at Kyle Shurmur, his son? Nah, because he's not any good. Well, guess what?
Yep.
The outlier of all outliers happened today. The Broncos signed, or are signing, I should say, Kyle Shurmur, undrafted out of 2019 or out of Vanderbilt in 2019, spent a year with the Chiefs, got himself a ring, even though he didn't really contribute, but he got the ring. Your gut reaction to the Broncos bringing in Kyle Shurmur as the fail-safe's fail-safe?
Well, yeah, you just hit on it. This is an emergency option. This is the break glass in case of emergency after what the Broncos went through. They're not going to have to be put in that position once more. As I just tweeted, it's not coincidental at all that the Broncos are signing a former Chiefs quarterback days before facing Kansas City. You get some intel, you get some insight. Whatever you can glean from Andy Reid's playbook through Shurmur, that's what you'll get from him. You have another guy in the stable who's, been away from the building. He hasn't been exposed to the same maybe CV issues as some of the other players. And also, obviously, you have the son of the Broncos offensive coordinator because nepotism, Chad, always reigns supreme in this league.
Hey, man, it's the NFL. And the Denver Broncos, they've never been afraid of nepotism. I mean, just look at how the ownership situation has unfolded, as ugly as it's been. Nepotism is a part of life. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. Nepotism isn't always a bad thing, especially as it relates to high-achieving people. Oftentimes that second generation is a chip off the old block. But then again, there's also those instances, Zach, where they're not quite up to par with the senior generation. But nevertheless, Kyle Shurmur is about to be a Denver Bronco. Now, he's going to have to pass through 6 days of CV testing, but that should get him there Sunday by the skin of his teeth and the Broncos' teeth, provided he does not test positive between now and then. But this is a guy that, look, he's going to end up on the practice squad, and he's a guy that, as you said, he's an emergency. The Broncos fully expect to get Drew Lock, Brett Rippon, and Blake Bortles back as of tomorrow, even though the league mandated Monday and Tuesday facilities are shut down. When the Broncos get back to work on Wednesday for practice to start game planning the Chiefs, they are expecting to have those three quarterbacks back. But, Zach, they were, whether briefly, whatever magnitude of exposure you want to say they had on last Tuesday to Jeff Driscoll, they were exposed to an infected person. And so there is the outside chance that one of them could wake up tomorrow, or all of them, in fact, and actually test positive for the virus. And if that were to happen, then again, it's another Armageddon situation because Jeff Driscoll's off the table for 2 weeks, and that would put them off the table for at least 10 days. And so then it would be Kyle Shurmur. Like, Kyle Shurmur would be the starting quarterback in that event. But, Zach, there's no reason to believe that's how it's going to shake out. At least one of those guys, at least one, is going to test negative tomorrow, and they'll at least have one quarterback they can rely on.
Yeah, and if it happens again, the NFL will just disband the franchise, Chad. They're going to just make him cease to exist. And let me get this off my chest now before we dive more into our pod today. The NFL, once again, pushed back the Ravens game. That's 3 times now. They made accommodations for the Baltimore Ravens. They are now playing at 3:40 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday afternoon. What is this, school dismissal? That's the best time you can come up with? And they can't put the Broncos a day later to Monday? They can't accommodate the Broncos one singular time. They've done it to the Ravens now 3 separate times. The NFL is a joke, and Roger Goodell, if not to the Broncos, he owes Broncos country an apology for what he did yesterday. It was unconscionable, Chad.
Good word. I love that word selection. Here's what I said on Twitter. Those of you following, I said, the NFL has beclowned itself this week with its unfair treatment of the Broncos and its transparent favoritism. It's a double standard, reeks to high heaven. What a disgrace. And it has been a disgrace. And Zach, I thought it was really cool on Twitter last night after the Gut Reaction podcast. You shared a screenshot of a few comments on the Gut Reaction stream on YouTube that showed a bunch of Saints fans, multiple Saints fans showing some class and going, this win feels hollow. The Broncos got done dirty by the NFL. This wasn't right. This game should have been rescheduled. Cool to see. And it just lays bare the reality of just how bad that decision was by the NFL, and transparent and obvious in terms of we don't care. We're going against rationality and reason and logic. We're making an example out of you, and damn the consequences.
There were a lot of Saints trolls in the podcast last night, but the ones that commented, the ones I screenshotted, they all said the same thing. We can't take much pleasure out of this victory. It doesn't even feel like a victory for us. You guys have nothing to be ashamed of. You guys should be, I respect you and your team for the effort. That's proof. If you can't take it from us, if you think we're biased because we cover the Broncos, take it from the fans of the team that the Broncos just lost to. They said the same exact thing. The game should not have been played. The Broncos got screwed over. I appreciate those Saints fans, not just for peddling the same, fact that we're pushing along, Chad, but they see it for what it is. Only the uninformed, lazy, or stupid can look at yesterday's game and be like, the Broncos did it to themselves, blame Drew Lock, take it out on them. The NFL screwed them over, and I've been watching this sport all my life, Chad. I've been covering it for the last decade or so. I have never seen anything like what we saw yesterday, and I pray to God we never see it again. It was ridiculous.
Amen, Christy. There should be rules for the rule makers.
Yes.
We'll get more into it. We got a lot to get to still tonight. We'll talk more about who Kyle Shurmur is beyond the surface stuff, being Pat Shurmur, the offensive coordinator's son. We'll get into that. We'll get into what Vic Fangio had to say about the injuries to Phillip Lindsay, to Bryce Callahan, and continue to kind of sift through the aftermath of that debauched abomination that was an NFL game on Sunday at Mile High. But first, Zach, we do have to take care of a few quick matters of business, starting with sponsor of tonight's live stream.
Yes, guys. As always, tonight's live stream podcast is brought to you by sportsbetting.com. Broncos country. Gambling, as you know, is now legal in the state of Colorado, but here's what makes sportsbetting.com a no-brainer for sports fans just like you. First of all, sharp odds and low juice. In-house bookmakers, they're not a third-party service. They have reduced juice, the best prices, hassle-free bonuses with a one-time rollover. That means the bonus money is yours after you bet it one time, whereas other sites and competitors range from 5 to 30 times. Big discrepancy there. Finally, 24/7 live customer support. That means when you contact sportsbetting.com, you are always getting a real person in the U.S., never a robot, never someone overseas, always in the great U.S. of A. But here's the kicker, guys. At sportsbetting.com, you get a 100% risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. Not just one bet, though, but all of your bets. Play for a week, and if your losses exceed your winnings at the end of the week, sportsbetting.com will cover 100% of the difference. Remember, up to $1,000 with a one-time rollover. So head on over to sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle. That's sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle and capitalize on a risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. Get on it.
I just love sportsbetting.com and their support of MHH in this podcast. They've just been steadfast throughout this entire NFL season. And I just love our community, Zach, because our community does a great job of supporting the companies that support the brand. They
Yes.
get out there and they use those codes and they support our advertising partners. So shout out to you guys as well as sportsbetting.com. But gang, couple quick matters of business. We'll dive right back in. Follow the podcast on Twitter at HuddleUpPod. Zach, it's been really cool. I don't know what it is you said or I said, we said, but there's been a cavalcade of new listeners or people who haven't been on Twitter, who are listening on YouTube or Apple or wherever, hearing us talk about, hey, follow us on Twitter, keep the conversation going. And they're going over there and they're creating accounts and they're reaching out and they're connecting. And it's been great to see that happen. Let's keep it going, gang. Also follow the main account at Mile High Huddle. And then a gentle reminder to check out the merch store, huddleuppod.com. And get your swag on. Zach, I was thinking about it. We had all this drama going on with the Denver Broncos over the weekend. We totally missed an opportunity as capitalists to roll out some kind of a discount code for Cyber Monday or something for the merch store. So we'll see if we can make that up to you at some point in December. But anyway, huddleuppod.com. Get your swag on. Get a MHH trucker hat. Get a football priest hat. Hoodies, face mask, mugs, little something for everybody. Also, if you're on Facebook, we appreciate it if you consider becoming a supporter. If you want to get access to additional content that we got coming down the pike, we've got Kim Becker working on some things that is going to be directly for our Facebook supporters only. And if you'd like to be, of course, that's going to include myself. It's going to include Zach and a lot of the different podcast hosts. But if you want to become a supporter, just go to the page, facebook.com/milehighhuddle. You'll see the big blue button. Boom, you're in like Flynn. And if you're not in a position to do those things, it's all good. Zach and I, John, we are just stoked to have you in the stream with us here or listening after the fact as a podcast. But these three things we ask that you do because it's within the power of each one of you to do these three things. And the first is subscribe, crucial on YouTube, crucial on Apple, crucial on Spotify. Number two, like this video, and that's crucial on YouTube, Facebook. But the litmus test is number three, and this is the big one, gang. If we are doing a good job for you, the biggest thing you can do to let us know we are on the right path and doing a good job, the litmus test is share it out there on your social media. Share this video, share this episode. Help MHH and the Huddle Up podcast continue to grow and reach new like-minded Broncos fans just like you. All right, let's grab this super chat from Kenneth. Appreciate you, my friend. And holler when you get your mug. You should be seeing it any day now. I know it's shipped, so let us know when you get it. We really appreciate your support, my friend, and what you do for this community. He says, I'm petty. So if I was the Broncos, I would have lined up in shotgun and threw the ball into the stands every play. LOL. Yeah, I mean, there was just it was the most bizarre, nihilistic football experience that I've ever had. I mean, it was just like there was nothing to take away from the game itself, like nothing.
Right.
We can talk about the defense, but it was just meaningless. And I mean, honestly, the Broncos might as well have, that's probably the right English, forfeited because they didn't stand a chance in this. And it really just was bizarre and ugly.
It's true that, like, it doesn't even feel like a football game. It doesn't even feel like a preseason game or a scrimmage because the overarching theme is how the NFL screwed the Broncos over and how Kendall Hinton was very, admirable for what he went through in this performance yesterday. Let me just say one thing about the game plan, though, while we're on this question. Why only 2 design runs for Hinton in yesterday's game? If he's a dual threat quarterback, he only runs the ball twice. I thought that was a little strange. And even in the game where Pat Shurmur has nothing to lose, he doesn't show anything different. And he goes against the grain even more. Just, apropos to nothing, Chad.
I think it might have had a little something to do with, I mean, this is guesswork here, but them just worried about this kid. He talked about this after the fact, after the game, did Kendall Hinton, that, this was the first time I've taken a hit in 2 years. Let me find this actual direct quote because there's 2 things. There's 2 things he said yesterday, Zach, post game, that was interesting. One is he was asked, "How's your body feel?" Because he did take some hits, and as you mentioned, he did rush, but it was only twice. How does your body feel? He says, "Quote: Yeah, physically, I feel like I just finished a football game. I haven't been tackled for 2 years. Tomorrow morning probably won't be fun, but it was great to get back out there and get some contact." Close quote. And then one other thing here, Zach, on what it was like experiencing the speed of the NFL and the Saints defense. Quote, "The rush wasn't too much of an issue. Our O-line did great. Just the overall speed of the game, how the linebackers closed within seconds. It's just something you got to experience to kind of prepare for that. You don't know until you see it." Close quote. So it was definitely, a trial by fire. Welcome to the NFL moment for Kendall Hinton yesterday. And he did the best he could with 4 hours worth of preparation.
Oh, yeah. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying it's like you have a dual threat guy. You're not going to pass the ball. Why not run a little more? If you're worried about him getting injured, I mean, you have Royce Freeman as your emergency. What is the difference? I think it speaks to Pat Shurmur's game planning or lack thereof, but whatever.
Let's grab this super chat from WE, a bona fide superstar. Appreciate you. Shurmur's plan. Broncos suspend the QB room, and we see Chiefs legend Kyle Shurmur play the best revenge game, beating Mahomes and the Chiefs, #2020. I mean, dude, this year has just been so off the walls and off the rails with outlier scenarios unfolding left and right that seriously, nothing would surprise me at this stage. But Zach, I just don't feel like the football gods are very keen on pouring out a blessing on the Denver Broncos to that degree.
Plus, he's probably not going to be, he might not be cleared through CV protocol anyway. He's going to have to learn the playbook, get up to speed. So anyone who's thinking he's going to come in here and be the savior for this franchise, it's not going to happen. This is just insurance policy to end all insurance policies. The Broncos will do anything they can to not have to go through what they went through yesterday. And it just so happens they can sign a Shurmur. He was available. He's the son of the offensive coordinator. It was perfect destiny in a lot of ways.
An interesting super chat here from Steve Baumgartner, who we appreciate and we love here on this show. Thank you, Steve. Well, I'm glad you brought this to our attention. This might even warrant not only a conversation here on the pod, but a story after the fact. He says, hey, guys, did you see what Drew's mom posted on Twitter? Well, Zach, let's take a look. I just pulled it up as I saw John pull the super chat here. Let me pull this up. We'll read along. This is us seeing this for the first time, and indeed this is Laura Locke's Twitter account. She says, shame, and I don't know how well you guys can see this. Let me do my best here.
That's better.
All right. Shame on the many for thinking that they can speak of others in damning ways. Here is the truth. Drew in the QB room requested permission to watch film. They came to the facility on their own time to put in more work, which Fangio said after the game last night was commendable, as he still blamed them and said he was disappointed. Back to Laura. Quote, his leadership, which seems to be in question by some, brought them to this predicament. Drew asking for more commitment of his QB room than just a normal NFL day. Drew and the QBs even requesting a room at the facility rather than risking trouble and meeting at an off-campus site like the Titans were busted doing. Back to Laura. Quote, this is a group of 4 men that had tested negative that day and are with their people, their ecosystem, as we tell our own children and friend groups. They let their guard down. They did not wear their masks the entire time. They were in their socially distanced environment. It's unfortunate, not damning. Does Drew take this virus serious? Ask his sister, who visited and had to quarantine and test before arriving. Ask his girlfriend, who he has asked to not travel to away games. Ask his dad and I, who stay in a hotel on game weekends rather than his home. Oh, and by the way, he does not have the virus. He wasn't the one with the virus, and as I pray nightly, I hope he doesn't, nor anyone else, get the virus. Let's interrogate those in the NFL that do have the virus. How safe were they being? Who was in their ecosystem that shouldn't have been? Or were they just not wearing their masks all the time? As a parent, an educator, a friend, a coworker, a boss, using people to make an example of a situation is wrong. The NFL used one of their own as an example. This is where the shame is. Quote from the top rope, Zach.
Very much agree. I know she's a mom. She's protecting her son, and there's obviously a lot of bias in there, but that's exactly what the NFL did, and everyone recognizes it, Chad. The Broncos should not have been punished. Your analogy yesterday was so spot on. It was like a little kid stealing candy, and they got executed for it. And they went way overboard, and the fact that they were in a socially distanced environment, and they took their masks down to eat. Think about that. It's not an indictment on his character or him taking the virus seriously. It's just a minor lapse that did not warrant what the Broncos received. She is 100% correct.
Cop 16 says, why did they choose the NFL, the Broncos, to prove a point when they could have used the Ravens? It's simple. The Ravens are a playoff caliber team with a superstar quarterback, and that's it. That's literally the answer. The Broncos were the perfect target for the NFL to scare everyone straight. All the other 31 teams, the Broncos were the perfect mark, Zach, because they're a middle of the road to subpar team, just hovering right under 500, and they basically pissed away their best odds at making the playoffs by losing to the Falcons and Raiders in consecutive weeks. And so the NFL saw its opportunity and it pounced.
Yeah, that's we don't care about the Broncos. We don't care if they lose this game. We don't care if their fans are mad. Who are they? They're insignificant to us when we have the Ravens, we have the Steelers facing each other. We have teams like the Chiefs right now dominating. Who are the Broncos? They haven't made the playoffs since 2015. Who cares about them? The NFL personally saw to it, Chad, to either make them forfeit or make them play an unwinnable game. The NFL personally saw that scenario to happen. That's where my problem comes with it. The bias and the lack of competency and the lack of transparency and the lack of consistency in their decision making has gotten me so incensed. It's crazy.
It's a double standard. Mike Evans jumping in. We love you, Mike. Appreciate you so much, my friend. Bonafide superstar. Day in, day out, he's in the stream and he's showing love and he's posing great questions that get us thinking, get us all talking. He says, would you prioritize if we have an ownership? Would you prioritize if we have an ownership, coaching, or talent problem? Honestly, look,
I don't think it's
Denver radio today was going off the chain, dude. That this whole process is just a microcosm symptom, case in point of just how listless the franchise has become. Starts at the ownership. John Elway, Joe Ellis, they need to be relieved of their duties post haste. And as much as I understand that line of thinking, because that's where the buck stops, right? They are the top of the food chain. This wasn't the Broncos, dude. This was the NFL. And look, there's, again, the Laffy Taffy example, right? The kid, you already mentioned that. It's not that Drew Lock and the quarterbacks, and thus Vic Fangio, and then going up the chain in terms of accountability to John Elway, don't have responsibility for what happened. They do. It's that the punishment simply doesn't fit the crime. And so how can you castigate? You can say, well, they knew the rules. They should have known better. Yeah, but do you think they had any inkling that by dropping their mask for just a second to take a bite, that the NFL would literally force them to play a game without, if they would have even had that as a possibility in their own minds, Zach, even that small infraction, they don't do it. You probably see Drew Lock and all those guys, maybe they just stay home. Maybe as Drew's mom talked about, they don't have an extra day in the office, so to speak, studying film and breaking it down. I don't know, but I'm not about to go off the rails on a front office and a CEO that frankly had nothing to do with Drew Lock, Brett Rippon, and Blake Bortles' decision to get together that day with Jeff Driscoll unknowingly with a guy that was infected and even though they were socially distanced. All right, 6 feet apart is what technically counts as social distance, Zach. So what they say is if you're within 6 feet, you got to be masked. All right, but if you're outside of that 6 foot window, what is the problem for going like this for a second? You tell me. I mean, I don't know.
There is none. And let me ask you a question. Did the Patriots know the rules? Yes, they did. They were fined and they were actually accommodated with the Broncos game. The Broncos lost a bye week because of Cam Newton and the Patriots. Did the Ravens know the rules? Yes. Half their team is on the CV list and their game was rescheduled 3 times. Did the Titans know the rules? Yes. And they're the ones that set this whole thing in motion. Were they forced to play without Ryan Tannehill? Were they forced to play without a quarterback? No. Why does that same rule not apply to Denver? Why does the Broncos not get the same luxury as the other teams? They're not at the child's table, Chad. This is a legacy NFL franchise. This is an NFL team that just upset one of the better teams in the NFL this season. And you're going to make an example out of them? You're going to treat them and their fan base like what? Dispensable and stupid. That's how the NFL and Goodell views the Broncos and their fans. They're not going to care. We can do what we want. They're a loser franchise. They haven't won anything. Well, you know what? Everyone sees through the charade. Media members, players, even fans from the opposing team. This was one of the most bungled situations in any sports franchise, any sports league I can recall in quite some time.
Yeah, the NFL treated a first-class organization like, second, third-class citizens. If there's, I don't know like what a minor league analogy is. Yes, I mean it was ridiculous. And this question here from Jerry on Facebook. Jerry, it's so long that I'm just going to flash it and then I'll read it. Appreciate you, Jerry, one of our supporters on Facebook. He says, good evening, priests. What's on the plate today? Fangio throws QBs under the bus. NFL makes examples of minimal breakage of protocol. Ravens considering a strike while NFL bends over backwards for them. Locke takes account, carrying blame on his shoulders, crucified by fans. Hinton gives his best, fans hanging next to Locke. Shurmur brings in his son to be the new savior. Can this really be covered in just an hour? So he's really exercising some demons there, is Jerry, and a lot of that is rhetorical and whatnot, Zach. But yeah, I mean, back to just this kind of ties into what Jerry's speaking to, and then also what Mike had to say. Guys, if you look at the product on the field yesterday in that abomination of a game, how long did it take for the 8-2 Saints to pull away from the Broncos? Third quarter was really when they pulled away, right? with Kendall Hinton at quarterback, the Broncos hung in there. I mean, what was the first? They narrowly avoided what would have been the first shutout at home in Denver Broncos history. They came this close. Asang Bassi gets the pick. They end up getting a 58-yard field goal from Brandon McManus. And, they avoid that. But nevertheless, this wasn't a team. If you looked at these two squads on the field yesterday, they weren't that far apart from talent. So, Mike, I don't think it's a talent issue. We could talk coaching. There have been plenty of coaching. I do fully question at this stage, although I know he's going to get next year. I do question whether Vic Fangio is the right man to captain this ship. But nevertheless, I don't think it's a talent issue here, Zach, because if Drew Lock is on the field yesterday starting for the Denver Broncos, dude, just based on what we saw from those Saints yesterday, there's a good chance Broncos win that game.
Yeah, I wasn't that impressed with the Saints. I mean, their defense was solid and the running game was solid, I guess, but Taysom Hill is trash. I mean, I wouldn't want him on my team at all. And I think they played down to the Broncos because they knew they didn't have to do much, but I wasn't blown away by the Saints at all. And let me just say, for any Broncos fan that's getting on Kendall Hinton, you guys should be ashamed of yourselves. What do you expect from the guy? 24 hours notice. He hasn't played quarterback in 4 years. No practice, no preparation time, thrown against one of the best defenses in the entire NFL. Hasn't taken a hit, he said, in 2 years. He did as best of a job he possibly could, and all the respect and appreciation he got on social media was 100% warranted, Chad. He earned my respect, and I thought the Broncos should have gave him a roster spot for the rest of the year, just as a thank you. And what do? He reverted back to the practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, he'll, don't cry too many crocodile tears for him, because he did get like a $35,000 paycheck for his troubles yesterday. So, it's not like he threw himself down on a train track and just let bad things happen. He was in an impossible situation, tried to make the most of it. And as you said, Zach, any Broncos fan, I haven't really seen this though, so I'm not sure what Jerry's speaking to.
I'm sure they're out there.
Well, you're probably right, but as guys who we have our finger on the pulse of Broncos fans. I mean, 90,000 followers on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I'm not hearing that from our community. And so usually, there's a fraction of fans that if there is a minority type of take or viewpoint, it comes to the surface at some point, especially if it's a negative one. I really haven't heard that. But then again, I've kind of stayed off Facebook today, so to speak. But let's grab Terry jumping in. One of our bona fide superstars, the guy who originally inspired the hashtag state of being up there north of the 49th parallel. We love you, Terry. Appreciate you, my friend. He says, did anyone see a coach trying to coach Hinton? I did. No. I did. For real. I did. Pre-game, I saw Mike Shula. There's multiple pictures. The site that we use, the SI that we're licensed to use images. There's plenty of shots of Shula and Hinton on the field pre-game. And then, during the game, I can think of a few pans to the sideline that showed Mike Shula over there talking to him. But we learned after the game, Zach, they only had time to kind of go over 20, 30 plays. That's it. That's all they really could go through. And so how much are you really trying to coach him? What exactly are you trying to coach? I mean, from an emphasis perspective, I guess trying to keep him focused on what the hot read is on this passing concept, or, if it is a designed run, what the blocking concept might be, what gap you need to look at, whatever the case may be. It was such a pared down, minimalist type of game plan. That's all he had time to do. And even he's like, man, I did the best I could with what little preparation. Even a couple of days of practice would have been nice. He didn't even get that, Zach.
Well, see, that's not my problem with this. My problem with this is we're actually debating whether a Broncos coach coached the quarterback in a game. And when we're surprised that the answer is yes, that to me is an issue. When we're surprised that a Broncos offensive coach went over and talked to the Broncos quarterback, no matter who it is, Locke or Hinton, during a game. That's what I've been saying for a while now. I wish the Broncos coaches had more interaction with the players, but I guess that's a dying horse.
Let's grab Dave from Georgia, one of our superstars. And it's been great to connect with you as well, my friend, on Twitter. So appreciate you. He says, the NFL's decision to force the game and give everyone else a free pass is horse cookies. Do you think Hinton has a place on this team at any position going forward? Honestly, the novelty of it and whatever sentimental value he presents the Denver Broncos for his stepping up and answering the bell yesterday. Honestly, within the scope of a production-based business, it fades pretty quickly. It really does. So I think, you'll see Hinton stick around this year, but it guarantees him nothing because he's not an NFL quarterback. This isn't a charity. And if you want to make it as a wide receiver, make it as a wide receiver, prove that you deserve to be one of the 5 or 6 guys that are on the 53.
It's true, yeah. As much as heartwarming as it was yesterday, as much as we're praising him now, 5 weeks from now, no one's going to remember what happened or who his name is. And if you keep him on at wide receiver, not quarterback, obviously, you have to cut either Cleveland or Deontay Spencer from the roster. And like Chad said, it's a production-based business, and all the feel-good stories in the world don't overrule stats and production, what you bring to a team. That's, I think, where he'll stay for now, is a part of the organization, but as a permanent member of the 53, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I love the kid's heart, and honestly, he's a very smart player. Just to pull off what he did yesterday requires some real football IQ. So props to the kid, and I think he has potential. He put up 1,000 yards as a receiver in his last year at Wake Forest, months after he transitioned to the position, and that was for a crappy school with a crappy quarterback who replaced him as quarterback, and so he's got some chops. You saw that twitch. He's got some speed out there. So it's just a matter of letting him kind of percolate and go through the system and see if he can develop as a receiver. Terry, appreciate that, my friend. He says, #footballpriest, #state of being, and of course the #MHHUN, because our community really is a worldwide community. We got fans listening in Canada. We got fans listening in South America and Mexico. We got fans listening all parts of Europe, Asia. We've had people reach out, tell us they're from, the Fertile Crescent, the Middle East, whatever you want to call it, different Arab countries, Israel listeners, all over the map, Zach. And so, absolutely. And I think the UN, that was something coined by Troy, by Eclipse Stormborn, if I'm not mistaken. So appreciate that, Terry. Will Swenson on Facebook wants to know, how long will Bryce Callahan be out for? Okay. Zach, you had the story today for milehighhuddle.com. Why don't you drop some knowledge, and then I'll bring up the quote from what Fangio had to say today.
Yeah, if I haven't heard the latest test results, if they did come out yet, but it's the same foot that he obviously missed the entire season for last year, and he's undergoing further tests. There's some concern there because, the screw being bent and him missing the entire 2019 season on IR. There's not much that I knew as of when I wrote that story, Chad, but Fangio, I'm sure, as you're about to mention,
all right,
give an update.
So let's talk Callahan and Phillip Lindsay. There were concerns that Lindsay's might be season ending. Here's what Fangio said today. Quote, Phillip sustained what we think is a minor knee injury. There's a chance that he'll be able to go this week, so that's good. Callahan, on the other hand, I think is going to miss some time. And then he was asked, was it the same foot that he had last year? And he confirmed that it is the same foot, but it's a different injury. And then whether or not Callahan's injury is season ending, quote, it's too early to say that just yet, close quote. So in the case of Callahan, there's an argument to be made. Hey, man, if there was something up with that foot, no matter who the opponent was and no matter who the Broncos had starting at quarterback, you can't really blame an injury to a defensive player on the situation that happened yesterday. I'll hear you out on that, but I still think that the game plan that the New Orleans Saints implemented yesterday was purely driven by the fact that the Broncos had no quarterback. They just ran. And look, Callahan's not a run stuff. He tackles because he has to, but that's not his forte. He's 5'9", dude, 5'10" if he's standing on his tippy toes. As for Phillip Lindsay, now you've got an argument. This was a cat that was taking direct snaps, running straight into the teeth of a defense that knew that there was nothing else coming, and carried the ball 9 times for, what was it, Zach, 20 yards before he injured his knee. There's a true argument to be made that, as Drew Lock's in his statement, he's like, I pray for the safety of my teammates. They were not put in an idea. Football is not a safe game. Let's not fool ourselves, right? This is a dangerous, violent game. It's one of the aspects of it that we all love, right? It's very much a gladiator type of sport, and it's one of the reasons why it's king. But at the same time, Zach, yesterday was a situation in which the NFL could have mitigated the risk to the players. They totally disregarded they want to pretend as if the virus and this whole thing that happened with Drew and the quarterbacks is player safety driven. This is not player safety driven, Zach. This is revenue driven. Make an example, because we don't want to lose our season. If they cared about player safety, if that really was the paramount issue to Roger Goodell and that front office, they would have rescheduled this game. Plain and simple. So good news that Phillip doesn't seem to be a season ender, but we still don't know for sure on either one of those guys.
My point, what I was going to say, is that they should never have been injured because that game never should have happened. So that's the NFL has blood on their hands with those injuries. Someone on Fox Sports, injury analyst, said Lindsay could have a hyperextension in his knee, maybe an MCL sprain or a bone bruise. It's too early to say. He could miss some time, but he's a tough guy. If he can play Sunday, he will play. So lock it to Mile High Huddle during the week, and we'll keep you updated.
Our friend Jeremy, known as Black Knight 232 on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, jumping in off the top rope with a very generous super chat. And, just blows us away, my friend. We really appreciate that. Means a lot to us. And he says here, some good news. What's cool? There's a symbolic super chat. He says, what's cool about the number 50? Broncos won Super Bowl 50, and I hit that magic number 50 for the Twitch affiliate program. That's excellent news, guys. Dude, that's congratulations to you, my friend. That's great. Go buy a few packs of Coors Hard Seltzer on me. Thanks for all the help and support. Could not have gotten there without you guys. That's excellent news, my friend. And we do appreciate your support.
Yes.
And it means a lot to us. But that's just great news, man. As guys that, we started the YouTube or the MHH YouTube account. John, you can take him off. I don't have access to him there. But we started the YouTube account for MHH 2015 just as a place to auto share our Spreaker podcasts, right? That we would pre-record and upload. And then over time, we started putting videos also on the same story videos that we would upload to milehighhuddle.com. We're like, we'll throw them on YouTube. And then one thing led to another, and we ended up over the course of about 4 years, not really giving YouTube much of our attention in terms of content, Zach. After about 4 years, hey, I get an email from YouTube that says, hey, guess what? You're now eligible to monetize your channel. You can be in the partner program and whatnot. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And it still took 6-7 months for the light bulb for both of us to go off and be like, hey, man, let's give YouTube more of our attention and focus and whatnot. So the reason I go on that little anecdote for you guys is because it really is an achievement as any kind of a creator out there to unlock with any social program, social media outlet out there, a monetization. That's the sign of a lot of dedication, hard work, and consistency. So kudos to you, Jeremy.
Yeah, Black Knight's out there, finishing off a cold hard Coors Seltzer after manscaping while browsing sportsbetting.com. So we appreciate you so much for your donation. And listen, 50 now, 50 more to come. Keep going, keep grinding.
Yeah, amen. Bronco Batman, great member of our community and a superstar. He says, y'all think we'll play the Chiefs closer than the previous games? I'd love to say yes to you, my friend. I really would. But this is just, even before the crap hit the fan this last week, as we've been telling you, these Mile High roundtables, when we make our picks on Friday, we wait till the last second because we don't know what to expect on a game-to-game basis. We just don't know. And then you have this happen. Zach, this could go, I can see this unfolding one of two ways. Either the Broncos, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and emotionally they have just split, and they just want to get through 2020 and give up the ghost, so to speak. Right. Or it really was a lightning rod, galvanizing, rallying point for this team, and they're pissed, and they're getting their quarterback back, and it's going to be a different animal. But in order for that to happen, Zach, Drew Lock has got, his worst games as a pro up to this point now, and granted, both were in snow, and granted, both were the first two snow games of his football career, have come against the Chiefs. So, we'll see.
Here's my thinking, though. As with any team, as you well know and have said multiple times, they're going to take on the complexion of their head coach. And what has their head coach done in the wake of yesterday's game? He hasn't backed his players. He's backed over them with the bus. He threw them under it and then backed over them with the bus. So I don't know. I think Vic, I was tweeted this today, do you think Vic is taking the right approach? And I really don't. I kind of understand if he's, from an optics point of view, like we mentioned yesterday, Chad, off air, maybe trying to mitigate the damage with front-facing PR, but he's playing a dangerous game, not supporting your own players. And on top of that, considering a fine for conduct detrimental. So it's bad enough you couldn't play. It's bad enough you were made an embarrassment. Now you're going to fine your quarterbacks who were mostly innocent bystanders and all this. Fangio is on the verge of a mutiny in that locker room. And you know what, Chad? The more he goes on with this, it's not overreaction. It really lends credence to my opinion. I know you have the same opinion as well. Great defensive mind. That's not being disputed. Maybe not the best head coach.
Yeah, jury's out, man, and it's more out than it's ever been on Vic Fangio. And he hasn't had it easy, obviously, not only with the pandemic, but the way the pandemic influenced the Broncos injuries situation. I mean, it's just been one tragedy after another for Fangio this year. So on that, I give him a pass. But when the rubber has met the road in crisis moments, he's left a lot to be desired. And this was an opportunity. And I'm sure, this is just me guessing. All right. But I'm sure he's just taking his marching orders. The Broncos don't want a World War III with the NFL over this. They wanted whatever dispute they had with the NFL, in all likelihood, to stay behind closed doors. Even though it is interesting, Zach, that through their mouthpieces, and I say that not in a derogatory sense, but literally, like the two guys that break the most news in Denver, Mike Kliss and Benjamin Albright, whoever feeds them information from the Broncos front office, there's a reason why they're feeding that information. They want that information to come out. And we saw last night from Benjamin Albright that the Broncos did push back in terms of releasing some information to their guys, their two top source guys, mainly Albright in this case, but that, look, we didn't think the video stuff was egregious. And the NFL led us to believe that the video footage of these quarterbacks, that it wasn't going to be a big deal. And we were transparent, and we offered up the video on Thursday, even though we didn't have to. And then they crushed us for it. And so I can see, Zach, a scenario in which Fangio is just taking his marching orders from, whatever food, up the chain of command, whatever it might be. But at the same time, today there was a story from MHH here from Keith Cummings that said that covered what Kareem Jackson said after the game yesterday. And Zach, it was polar opposite of what Fangio said. Here's Kareem real quick. Quote, "For me, I'm not really disappointed in our guys, the quarterbacks. I know the protocols have picked up a little bit. Wearing that mask, being in the room on a day-to-day basis definitely becomes kind of irritating. But honestly, we have to do what we have to do. But at the same time, I just feel like going into the game, we weren't given the chance." And then he goes on to say, "Earlier in the year, our game got pushed back. I would say it may have been different circumstances, but I just feel like we weren't given the same opportunity as far as pushing our game back or delaying it or anything like that," close quote. And Zach, what would it hurt? I honestly wonder for Vic Fangio, when asked the question, now he's had two opportunities post-game and then today, both times he said, "I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to comment on that." What would it have hurt for him to say, "I really don't know. I question why the NFL would not reschedule this game"? That's all you would have to say. That's it. You can still say you were disappointed that the quarterbacks didn't perfectly honor protocol, but then you could follow that up with, "Hey, man, I'm scratching my head. I'm out of explanations. I don't know why the NFL didn't delay this game till Tuesday."
You have to show some solidarity, Chad. And to your point about going into a war or having a war, the NFL initiated this, Chad. The Broncos did not initiate this. The NFL wants a war. And when I'm in a war, I want my guy in my foxhole with me. And Vic Fangio is not in that foxhole. He's walking over to the other foxhole and giving them grenades, giving them ammo. Why not back your own players? Why not support your own players? And unless John Elway told him directly to blame the quarterbacks and to say what he said, I don't believe that. I think Elway gives Fangio more rope than people realize. I think Fangio is left to his own devices for the most part. The way he handled this is the way he handled Pat Shurmur, is the way he handled Eli Wilkinson. And that's what I'm saying. For someone as old school and as he has this air of almost superiority or stubbornness. He's very lacking in self-awareness, at least socially, at least on a podium, or at least with running a football team. And that's really come to light. I didn't notice that last year. It was his first year. We discounted a lot. He was getting used to the thing, being a head coach. But now in year two, his decision-making and his situational management, and now the coup de grace is backing up over your own players after getting royally screwed over by the NFL. And like you mentioned, it's easy to say, I'm disappointed. They should have been more cognizant. They should have had their masks on at all times. But why not say it shouldn't have happened? We're mad. We're going to something. But to draw that line in the sand, you can't step over that once you do that, Chad. It's playing a dangerous game.
And honestly, it kind of speaks to a lack of power. It kind of speaks to a guy who's not the boss. Like, look, the way it's supposed to work in the NFL in terms of the chain of command is GM, yeah, that's the executive in charge of personnel and free agency and making the draft picks and the scouting department and all that stuff. But the head coach, their job is to coach the team and be the face, so to speak, the leader of the team itself, right? The product on the field, not the future stuff and the contracts and all that. but the guy that's at the helm, and it doesn't feel like that is what Vic Fangio is. It feels like he's doing what he's told. Honestly, I do wonder. I mean, I don't say this to take the onus off of Fangio, but to me, it seemed like a guy who would love to say what's on his mind, but his hands are tied, and he knows that, and he's just doing what he's told. I could be wrong.
That better be the only reason he said that. That's the only reason that's acceptable.
But does it still make it acceptable? That's the real question. Even if your bosses are telling you, hey, we just want you to look past this. Don't comment when they're asked. You're going to get the question. Just don't comment. Don't take the bait. No, I'm going to say this was wrong. We got hosed. This was not morally. This was not. We were on the short end of the stick. What do you lose by saying that? I guess
Nothing.
maybe there's some kind of unspoken threat by the league of being fined a draft pick or something because of the violation, et cetera. Letter of the law. Maybe they're just trying to avoid that. I don't know, but
we shouldn't have to speculate. That's the thing. It's like Fangio treats the Broncos like he's not even coaching for them. He's like a substitute coach. He hasn't had the emotional investment, it seems like, Chad. Would Gary Kubiak have said the same thing? Would even Vance, I hate to say that, would Vance Joseph come out and throw his quarterbacks under the bus? I think he'd have a little more loyalty to the team that's signing his paychecks. I was shocked at how tone deaf Fangio was. And to double down on that by proposing a fine? Are you serious?
Yeah, it really is bizarre. Let's grab Kenneth here. Appreciate you, my friend. He says, Shurmur's plays look like he wants to get fired. I'm perfectly happy, guys, to analyze and criticize even Pat Shurmur for every single game this year, with the exception of yesterday. Like, I don't know what you could have expected him to do any different than he did. Seriously, like, we can pick nits, but like, think of the enormous pressure of the moment he was under to come up with just a product that could even be modestly passable by NFL standards. Like, dude, this is a kid that was playing wide receiver. What does everyone expect? And I'm not speaking directly to you on this, Kenneth. I'm just saying, generally speaking, like, what does anyone expect? This was a kid. Did you see Hinton throw the ball? They straight into the dirt, dude. He's not an NFL arm. What does anyone really expect from Shurmur, from the Broncos, with the situation the NFL put them in? That's my take.
I absolve him of about 80%, 85% of what we saw yesterday. It was not on Pat Shurmur. And you know what, Chad? I'd love for our podcast tonight to be about Pat Shurmur, to be about the play calling. But you kind of see through a smaller prism. Given a dual threat quarterback, given something different with nothing to lose, what did he do? What was the best he can come up with? 2 wildcat runs up the middle and a pass that went nowhere and punt. And he ran the dual threat quarterback again only twice. So it just, in a microcosm kind of way, shows that Pat Shurmur has no creativity and no imagination in his offense, Chad. This is something we've been saying for weeks now. And no matter the quarterback, it's the same gripe. It's the same criticism. And after a while, the one denominator there is the guy calling the plays.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being too soft on Shurmur for yesterday because I just don't quite see it that way. But Liam wants to know here, Zach, guys, were there any positives from yesterday? Well, hopefully you guys read the winners and losers article that we published last night. I want to say 5 winners, 2 losers. And the losers were only Bryce Callahan and Phillip Lindsay because they got hurt, because they were put into a situation that they shouldn't have been in, and they got hurt. It's not by virtue of anything they did or didn't do.
Roger Goodell, big-time loser.
Roger Goodell. As far as the winners, let's talk positives. Look, Kendall Hinton, we've already given him his props for showing the heart that he did. Who else? Royce Freeman for being the other quarterback. 8 carries, 50 yards, played real hard.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else made the list. Asang Bassi for getting that pick that resulted in a plus 50 possession, in which then went on to the next winner, Brandon McManus coming through on the 58-yarder. And then Demarcus Walker is the only other guy I really wanted to single out and mention as a positive, as a winner from yesterday for his couple of sacks. And there's something Fangio said about him that I want to get to after we grab Christy's super chat. But that's about it, Zach. I mean, what do you take positive?
I think Malik Reed and Bradley Chubb play good games. I think they did well as pass rushers. I think Garrett Bowles, except for the holding penalty, which was declined, he saved a touchdown. He was, again, he was solid in pass pro. Again, the winners and losers, the stats, the wins and losses don't matter in this game. The biggest theme is how the Broncos got screwed over, and individual performances really don't matter in this game.
The queen of MHH jumping in, as she is wont to do. Appreciate you, Christy, and hope all is well. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, by the way. She says, always thrown under that Goodell-driven bus. Always the underdogs. Let those fools hate.
That's right.
Well said. Well said. Top rope. Put it up on the marquee. That's the banner. Let them hate. Let those fools hate.
The Broncos should come out and show the NFL they're not jokes. Maybe not this Sunday, but before the season ends, they'll show Goodell what's what. I'm confident in
that. From Terry, if Locke was the reigning MVP, what happens?
That the game's played right now if Locke was the reigning MVP.
Yeah, well, it's rescheduled for Tuesday. That's when it's – because they couldn't have been healthy. They couldn't have passed COVID. Dang it, I said it. They couldn't have passed the testing until Tuesday. Would have been the soonest. So just like they've done, that's pretty much been the MO this year, Zach, for the most part, outside of the Broncos-Patriots game getting kicked to the next week and the whole schedule getting reshaped for multiple teams. The Broncos bore the brunt of that, but the Chargers had their schedule impacted by the Patriots. Who else? The Dolphins. That game was moved. There's one more I'm missing, but either way, if Drew Lock is the reigning MVP, of course that doesn't shake out the way it did. Let's not. We have to be honest about this.
Yeah, I tweeted this last night. If the Broncos, and this is so pathetic, but if the Broncos had a Jackson or a Mahomes or a Rodgers on their team, these words wouldn't exist right now. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And those pandering health concerns by the NFL to keep the game on when it was and to put the quarterback in the situation the Broncos were in, those wouldn't exist. Those would have been poof gone if the Broncos had the reigning MVP. So it's a double standard. They didn't get the loyalty from the NFL, and they were really screwed over in a bad way. And the NFL showed their true colors.
The man himself, Zeus McPeak, jumping in. Very generous super chat. Every time he's in the chat, this is what he does. We love you, Stu. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, by the way. And hello to you as well, my friend. John, I'm going to grab this question here from Chandler, and then I want to grab this Demarcus Walker quote from Vic Fangio, and then we'll jump right back into the stream. But Chandler says, the fans need to light a fire under the NFL for this. Do you think Elway and Ellis need to step up for the team and call out the NFL for mishandling this situation? Zach, in a perfect world, yes, go to war, stand up for the team, battle it out. But let me ask you, what good is it going to do? You're already, as a team, as a franchise, in a very precarious situation. You don't have ownership. At any moment, the NFL could swoop in and punish you by fining you $10 million as this recent rule change. What could you gain? That's the question. And if there's nothing to gain from it, reasonably, what could you reasonably plausibly gain? Then you don't do anything. If there's more to lose than gain, I guess you could just be, hey man, on principle, we're going to battle this tooth and nail and go to war, and it's World War III with Roger Goodell in the NFL. But what do you gain?
This is going to be a really off-the-wall analogy, but it's almost like with Robert Kraft and his whole massage spa controversy. What is the reason he didn't just settle, or what is the reason he didn't, just make it? He wanted to clear his name, Chad. And that's what the Broncos have to do. They're a proud franchise. They're not the Bengals. They're not the Browns. They're not the Lions. They're not jokes. They're not basement dwellers. They've had a very tough season through a little fault of their own, and they got treated worse than second-class citizens. They got treated worse than stepchildren. They got treated like an add-on team, an expansion team. They're not that. So that's where my thing is, Chad. They have to prove, maybe not Elway or Ellis, but that's why I wanted Fangio to come out and just not tear into Goodell, but at least say something. We're not happy with the results of what happened. We're disappointed in what the NFL ruled. Something that's subtle, but still gets the message across. Doesn't have to come from Elway, but Chad, someone in charge has to defend the players here and not throw them under the bus.
It'll be interesting because Elway usually does. He has his KOA interview with Dave Logan. I want to say Tuesday. And it's either Tuesday or Wednesday that he does his Elway Access with the team site. And I'll be watching. I'll be paying attention to see if Elway does at least say that he was disappointed that the NFL was not willing to reschedule.
But here's the lose-lose he's in now. If he says he's disappointed, it goes against his head coach. It's two different lines of thinking. And if he says he agrees with Fangio, then we're criticizing him for saying that. So Fangio opened a can of worms with what he said that you can't put the cork back in the wine bottle.
All right, so real quick here, let me get to. I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Zach. Let me find it here. So this is what Vic Fangio had to say about Demarcus Walker how he's played this year, just kind of your overall vibe on Walker in what is also a contract year for him. Here's what Fangio said. Quote, yeah, he's had some good moments in there. And real quick, remind everybody, 2 sacks against the Saints. He also was the guy that screwed up his gap assignment that led to that Latavius Murray 26-yard touchdown, whiffed on the tackle as well. All right, so how has Demarcus Walker played this season? Fangio, quote, yeah, he's had some good moments in there. He had a couple of sacks. He's played the run good at times. We'd like for him to be more consistent in that area, but because of all the injuries along the front, he's gotten a lot more playing time, and he's improved some. We still need to get him better more consistently against the run. He's light in there. We know he's on the small side as D linemen go. I still think he can improve there and do better. For all those guys, they've really come in there and fought hard. We basically played the last 5 games without our entire starting defensive line, and you could see what that's done to teams around the league. I mean, Indianapolis has been playing really good defense all year, run defense, and they played without DeForest Buckner last night, and it got run down their throat pretty good. I saw the Bears last night. Akeem Hicks didn't play, and they got it run on them pretty good. These guys have come in there and done a credible job for us, and we appreciate it. Close quote. So, Fangio is much more colorful in his praise for players who are complete players. Like Demarcus Walker, it's nice to get those sacks, but for Fangio, he doesn't give the props unless it's a complete performance. And as long as he continues to be a liability against the run, which Walker is, and he explained why. He's only 280 pounds. He might be 285, but somewhere in there. And with the type of scheme the Broncos run, that he gets moved around by interior guys and double teams just really easily, Zach.
See, but I don't like this approach, because was it solely DeMarcus Walker's fault they allowed the touchdown? Was it not the other 10 players on the field? Why overshadow the good that he's done already? And they drafted him, Chad, to be a pass rusher. They didn't draft him to be a Mike Purcell. So the fact is he's finally exceeding in one area of his game, a former second-round pick who the Broncos want to salvage, the Broncos want to hit on. Why would you have this tough love approach where it seems like nothing's ever good enough? That works when you're Bill Belichick. And everyone that's come from the Belichick tree, not saying Fangio has, they tried to be Belichick. And like Josh McDaniels, Eric Mangini, you can't have that tough love approach without results. If you win, great. But if you lose like the Broncos have, it's going to fall on deaf ears. And not only, throwing your quarterbacks under the bus, but now taking such a hardline approach when your players do well in an awful game. He had 2 sacks against the Saints. Commend that. Don't look for something bad in that. Again, it's people management. It's awareness socially. I don't think Fangio has that.
And then what's bizarre, those are all great points, and I'm not going to try to dispute any of them because I agree with you. What then makes it all the more head-scratching is he shares an anecdote today about how his Saturday, this is Fangio, started out good because Garrett Bowles walked into his office and said, "Hey, coach, sounds like my deal's done. Like I'm getting paid." And they had an emotional moment together. Bowles went on to say that they both had teary eyes and all this, and it's an incredibly poignant and intimate and emotional, Fangio, showing that because he cares about his players. Guys, one thing about Vic Fangio that he was known for as an assistant, as a defensive coordinator, is standing up there and literally giving presentations to his players on how to protect their money, how to avoid Ponzi, getting taken in a Ponzi scheme, how to save, how to invest. This is a guy that does intimately care about his players. That was sincere. When Garrett Bowles said that they were both had teary eyes and whatnot, Fangio cares about his guys. He loves the triumph of Garrett Bowles overcoming all the adversity and getting paid money that's going to affect multiple generations of his family. That's Fangio. But then on a simple question, like you said, Zach, where he could just knock it out of the park with, props to DeMarcus Walker. We needed some plays made yesterday. My dude made plays. He got 2 sacks. Credit to him. What's so hard about it?
And his run defense could be a little better, but he still made the plays, and we're proud that he's developing in that area. I mean, that's also a testament to Bill Kollar, and to knock his run defense is actually a diss to Bill Kollar. So Vic Fangio, if I was DeMarcus Walker, Chad, would you want to play for him? Would you want to re-sign with the Broncos if he's the coach next year? Walker's a free agent after hearing that. And what did Fangio do in his very first press conference? We've mentioned this multiple times. He literally stood up there and criticized the Broncos' best player in Von Miller. He picked apart his game and said he could be better. I saw a comment that said the players like playing for him. I don't know if that's the case, especially not now. I mean, how could you run through a brick wall, so they say, for a guy like Vic Fangio, when he won't run through the wall for you?
I think with the fish the Broncos have to fry this offseason, I think you're going to see Demarcus Walker go sign a contract that's relatively a prove-it type of short-term deal with Vance Joseph and the Cardinals, and you'll see him go on and be a good player in the NFL.
I hope he does.
Jess jumping in, one of our superstars. Love you, buddy. He says, let's go ruin the playoff rankings with some dubs. Hey, man, let's hope, man. I was just thinking about it, Zach. We are now entering the very week, 1 year removed exactly, of Drew Lock's debut as the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. That's how quickly time flies. He started in week 13 last year against the Chargers. This is his chance to prove that these Chiefs games are not the emotional monkey that he's kind of allowed them to be, going out and talking about how, being the one to bring up that, I'm Darth Vader and the Chiefs. I grew up as a fan and all this business, dude. Get out there and prove that you can vanquish this team, and don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah, and don't treat them like they're this all, knowing, this perfect entity. They can be beat, and you can't treat them like they're invincible, because they're not. But failing that, just Drew, go out there and play your game. Prove that you're the face of the franchise. Prove that he should have been playing in yesterday's game, and you could have beat the Saints. I'm not looking for wins and losses or spoilers or whatever. I'm looking for the Broncos' young players to develop on schedule going into next season.
Cody wants to know, appreciate the super chat, why didn't the NFLPA step in anyway? Because these stringent rules, believe it or not, it's actually the NFLPA that was the stickler on all this stuff before the season. It's the NFLPA that was forcing the NFL to bend over backwards with regard to the virus protocols. So the NFLPA, maybe they could pick nits on how extreme the NFL's response was to this situation, but that was their baby, these protocols. And Kenneth says, hopefully Phil can play. He destroyed Kansas City last game. He did have a great game till Daniel Sorensen knocked him out with a helmet-to-helmet concussion, which he did get fined for, did Sorensen.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly he could be out 1 to 3 weeks. We don't know yet, but it's up in the air. He's truly questionable for Sunday's game. But knowing Phil, he's as tough as they come, Chad, and if he can play, he will play.
Hey, real quick before we grab Based Case, Will Swenson on Facebook, just a shout out to you, my friend. He says, by the way, I've been following Zach since his 24/7 days and been watching both of you guys since last August. Love the content. Looking forward to your guys' pods every week.
Thank you.
We really do appreciate that.
Good to see you again.
Base Gase, good to see you, my friend, with that profile pic gets me every time, man. Those meth eyes of Adam Gase.
When you read Kendall Hinton's stat line.
How important are the next 5 games for Locke? Is it do or die for him to keep his starting role? Or do you assume we'll have a competition? No, he's still, the jury's out. Now, look, John Elway last week before the proverbial crap hit the fan said that he's still excited about Drew Lock, that he's basically intimating, that this whole process of Drew Lock's bumping his head is, what you expect. He's young. He's figuring things out. He just needs the reps, and all these snaps and all these reps are only going to help him in the future. So as it stands, it seems like the Broncos are planning for 2021 for life with Drew. But after this little snafu last week in which he was directly involved in what ended up unfairly getting handed to the Broncos, it's a black mark, unfortunately. I mean, Mama Locke, I loved seeing her stand up, and I don't believe it's fair, but it's just like that same analogy, the kid that steals the Laffy Taffy, and then the judge wants to give him capital punishment. The guy that stands up and says, yeah, but he did steal the Laffy Taffy. He's not wrong. He did steal the Laffy Taffy. So Locke did violate the rules, however small and however, vague they might have been. So he needs to overcome that, Zach. But to answer the question directly, jury's out. He's still got the way he finishes this season could be the difference, Zach, between the Broncos emphatically going into 2021 with another build to the nest around Locke, or questions and going, hey, we're going to bring in a second or third round QB, or we're going to go out and pay a relatively known quarterback. We'll still maybe let Drew kind of be the incumbent leader in the clubhouse, but he's going to have to compete. Like, that's the difference between what these 5 games can do.
Yeah, and the guy who's doing this, let's make it clear what a loser that guy is. And the same one who snitched on the Broncos if it came to that. In terms of Drew Lock, though, I think we'll know how Fangio feels about Locke as a starting quarterback the next 5 games and going into 2021. It seems like Fangio was pissed off And he's almost like blaming Locke for the chain reaction of all this and not Jeff Driscoll. He'll be on the roster. I think he'll be the clubhouse favorite to be the starting quarterback for 2021, but I'm still holding firm to that. Nothing will be handed to him. I mean, he's not going to be the locked in, understood quarterback from day one. They're going to have an upgraded backup just in case, but I think he'll get first dibs going forward, no matter how he finishes this year into 2021.
Eric Ryan, good to see you, my friend. Appreciate the super chat. A guy that is increasingly becoming a superstar. He says, Kareem said what Vic should have. And I agree with you 100%. Tom El Greco, appreciate you, my friend, up there north of the 49th parallel. We're over the hour mark, Zach, so we got to rapid fire these and dip on out. But he says, if Mahomes or Brady got a common flu, they'd shut the league down. You're not wrong, my friend. That might be hyperbolic, but it's true.
Yeah, a lot of haters coming at you, Tom, for calling it the flu.
Let's see. Bison M, good to see you, my friend. Fellow drummer, rocking the metal band up in the Pacific Northwest. Appreciate the super chat, my dog. He says, I hope everyone in Broncos country had a great Thanksgiving. I hope they play pissed in primetime against KC. Hashtag Bozo Goodell the clown. Zach, you had the tweet of that glorious picture of him as the clown.
Yeah, he really is the biggest clown of all sports commissioners, and I don't think any Broncos fan, nor should they, will forget or forgive what he did anytime soon.
All right, let me just verify we haven't left any superstars out in the cold. I think we're good. Guys, this was a really, again, coming off a game in which there was very little to take away in terms of meaningful football to analyze. You know, this was a good aftermath pod. I think we only emphasized a night to sleep on what happened, only further emphasized the injustice that was wrought upon the Denver Broncos. We continue to tip our cap to Kendall Hinton for trying to make the most of his situation and stepping up to the plate, answering the bell. Vic Fangio continues to do things that make us question his wherewithal as a leader and as the man to be the head coach. And it was really interesting. Thank you, Stephen, for bringing to our attention the Mama Lock stuff. Maybe we need to get an article up on that because I think Broncos fans need to see that.
Yeah, that's where we are right now. And, we didn't spend a lot of time going over, like we said, the nuts and bolts of the game, individual performances, winners and losers, because no disrespect to your article, Chad, but, none of that, it's not the focus. The focus is what the NFL did to the Broncos and how the Broncos have reacted to the situation. I understand what's done is done now, but they have to clear their name. And I'm calling for the Broncos on this podcast, on Twitter, to release the video. If it's as been reported, Chad, and exonerates them, they have to clear their name by releasing the video. It's necessary retribution after what happened.
I don't know if I can go there with you, but in the spirit of what you're saying, I'm right there with you. I just don't know what it would gain. That's all. Guys, as we get out of here, a reminder, let's keep this momentum going. Follow the podcast on Twitter and join us over there to keep the conversation going. At Huddle Up Pod, also at Mile High Huddle is the main account. If you're following those two accounts, you won't miss anything pod related. You won't miss anything, any articles myself, Zach, or any of the other guys write on a daily basis. And then also follow my partner, Zack Kelberman, at Kelberman NFL, myself, at Chad and Jensen. And then don't forget to get your risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000 at sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle. Other than that, Zach, we're off tomorrow, so we'll circle back and see what the newswire provides us between Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll be back Wednesday, 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then tomorrow night, of course, building the Broncos with Nick and Carl at the usual time, 6 p.m. Mountain time. So have a great Tuesday off, my friend.
You too. We'll see you Wednesday, guys. Take care.
Oh, look, 11th hour, BG.
At the buzzer.
Appreciate you, dog. He says, Fangio, it's in question. He's just trash. I'm sorry, but he's a terrible coach and should never talk to the media. Hey, man, we feel you. We really do feel you. Go back and if you're just joining us, my friend, go back, rewind this stream. We spent a lot of time on that particular subject. So appreciate you, BG. As Zach said, you guys have a great night.